with BizNet software, and I'll be doing the presentation today. Of course, I really enjoy getting to do the Sage presentation. I used to be a Sage 100 user myself, and had the experience of building FRX reports, so this is something that's a little bit closer and more dear to my heart, as I used to have to do it as well. In our presentation today, I know that there's a chance to chat on the side, so you can enter messages, and I'm sure Byron will help us with that as we're moving through. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. One of the things I like to talk about, of course, is the process we're going through today, and this is something I've done myself, kind of lived the pain. And what we find is that in the reporting process, regardless of what we're trying to get, oops, sorry, I had a screen. Regardless of the organization, we typically find that we're going to pull that data out of Sage 100, and we're going to push that into Excel. And of course, I used to do this for several reasons. Even with the FRX reports, I would take and run those FRX reports and push them out to Excel. And there's lots of reasons for that. Sometimes it's as simple as I want to reformat or redesign the report. I want to add some calculations, do some percentages. And these are items that when dealing with FRX in particular, but other reporting tools outside of Excel, they're very difficult to do. You have to learn a new tool, but pushing it to Excel allows us to do it very quickly. Of course, we can also consolidate and aggregate data there as well, just add calculations to it. Of course, we end up creating this manual process that we have to repeat every time we create our reports. And of course, the risk associated with that, any times we're copying and pasting or exporting out to Excel, there's always that chance that we're going to copy and paste incorrectly, pull the wrong information. But fundamentally, the biggest issue I found in doing reports this way was once we push that data outside of Sage 100, it's out of date. Or even once we ran that FRX report and pushed it into Excel, it was out of date. And we found that before I could send reports out, I had certain key metrics that I knew management was going to look at that I needed to go into the system and double check, data validate. And so I spent that much more time making sure that data hadn't been posted after I'd run this report or created my reports. So when we went in and created our reporting solution, several things we wanted to accomplish, and first of which is we wanted to produce it using a reporting tool that has Excel as the interface, so I could use the Excel skills that I already had, but we wanted real-time data access. I still wanted the ability to drill down, like I had when we were using FRX, and I wanted to be able to do this quickly, and I didn't want to have to go out and create data warehouses or cubes to do that. And so with Biz Insight, we give you all that value, and we combine that Biz Insight reporting engine with our Biz content packs, like our Sage 100 content pack for financial reporting for GL. And that's going to give us the ability to deliver the product quickly and easily. Biz content for Sage 100 is going to have all the pre-built functions, reports, and templates you need to install Biz Insight and the Sage 100 financial GL reporting tool out of our Biz content, and begin building financial reports right away. I don't have to have consultants come in for weeks and set it up. The install actually takes place in less than 4 hours. We combine that also with the third piece of our reporting solution, and that's Biz Broadcast. It's sold as a separate item because not every client needs it, but it's great for distributing reports directly to end users, directly from Excel. So it's an automated method for sending out reports to all the end users, and we'll talk a little bit about how we can do that and really capitalize on what Biz Insight gives us. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move into our presentation. I don't want to stay in PowerPoint all day, so we're going to spend the rest of the time, or the majority of the time, inside of our Works tool. And so you're going to find that we're inside of Excel 2007, and we've got our Biz Insight tool with our General Ledger content pack. Now this content pack is just built on a generic demo database, but it's going to feature and show exactly how we can use our products to do exactly what you guys are doing every month. So one of the things it's going to contain is we're going to have our functions, analysis sets, and templates, and we'll talk about all of those as we move through the presentation, but we want to actually launch a report and show you how our solution works. And so I'm going to open up our templates, and these are report templates like an FRX report that I'm going to run. And we can run that report simply by dragging and dropping it in. It's going to go out, open up our Excel report that's directly connected or real-time connected to the database. And we can demonstrate, of course, the first thing is that now, because we're in Excel, we can combine graphs and charts with our reports. It's also very easy to modify reports that we have. If I'm looking at an income statement and the boss comes down and says, hey, That's great. I'd sure like to see that over a 6-month trend. How easy is it to modify our reports? For us, because we're in Excel and we're using an Excel function to return that data, I can simply copy those functions from left to right and return that data directly into our report. The other thing that's very nice is that because we're in Excel 100%, we can use all the functionality that Excel has. So I can set up things like conditional formatting. In this particular instance, I said, you know what, I'd sure like to know any meals and entertainment that exceeds 15,000 and highlight that cell for me. And that's, of course, just an Excel feature, but when we're able to pull real-time data in, it allows us to do that. And if I have a question on it, I can drill down by right-clicking. And when I right-click, you've got the same cut, copy, paste that you're used to seeing, but now you have the BizNet drill down at the bottom. That's going to allow us to drill down to either balances or detail, and I can bring it in as a pivot or a list. So I'm going to go ahead and drill all the way down to the detail level, and I'm going to bring it in as a pivot. And when I do that, it's going to dynamically create that pivot table for me, so I don't have to create a pivot table. We're going to bring the data in for you and create it on the fly. And so I'm looking at our account description, and if I want to bring in additional journals, for example, I want to see the journal entry numbers associated with it, I can do that. And of course, maybe I want to filter it by a different segment in my organization, so maybe I want to look at it by location. So now by drilling down and using my pivot table functionality, something that more and more of us not already working with, it's pretty easy to work with, I'm able to slice and dice that data, identify the fact that Dallas is my location that had the majority of those expenses, and if I had any transaction descriptions, also be able to return those as well. And identify exactly where that money went and allow me to go to the department or the location that I need to get additional information for. Of course, I can always double-click on Dallas, and it'll bring back the entire data set that we're bringing in from your database. So the idea is that we can quickly modify our report by copying cells from left to right, and then, of course, be able to drill down on anything we have information for. Of course, because we're in Excel, we can create any combination of reports, whether it's a standard income statement or a rolling 12-month income statement. But once you create all these reports, that's where the broadcast product is going to come in. It's going to allow us to go out and use our broadcast tab at the top, create a new distribution template that I can go in, list how I want to send the report, who I want to send it to, of course the subject, and I can also list it by the tab in the workbook. And then I can also set parameters for each one of the reports going out. So the idea is create the report, create Biz Broadcast. When I'm ready to send those reports out, I change the month, and run now to send those out. So the idea is we can drag and drop a report and then run our broadcast product to send those out to all the end users. And so what it's doing now is going out and creating each one of these reports, and we'll take a quick look at it, and I'll explain exactly what we did to send those out. So in the first row, and we'll look at that report, we sent it as a PDF. I sent it to the regional manager, and then we sent it just the one tab in our spreadsheet, the rolling income statement. But instead of running it once, I ran it for all my locations, for the Atlanta location, for the Dallas location, and for the Houston location. So Biz Broadcast took that one report and created 4 different versions of it, and then merged it together as a single PDF. I, of course, could send individual reports out. The second example we'll look at is a management report for Atlanta, where I used just that report again, but only sent it out. I sent it out as a summary one time. But if I wanted to send those individually, I could do that as well, just send Atlanta. So take a quick look at what the end reports look like, and then let's spend a little bit of time and dive a little bit deeper into the reports. So this is the PDF we created, and you can see that I have my all locations report, and then breaking them down individually. This allows us to create one report template, much like you were doing if you were using FRX, and to create different versions of it. We could, of course, create custom groupings or a tree structure like we used in FRX as well. And that's one of the things I like to spend a little bit more time on, and then we'll actually build a report. And if there are any questions, you guys please let me know, and we'll dive in. So one of the things we used to do is we needed the ability to create groupings of reports, or reports by tree. So here's a consolidated by location report. Of course, this could be consolidated by company as well, if we have multiple companies. The idea, though, is I can go in and say, if I want to look at just one of those by changing a parameter inside our report, maybe I just want to look at Atlanta, it's going to condense the report to just one of those locations. If I want to look at a region that I have established, this is something I create as a reporting category. Region A is one of those nodes in my tree, for example. Region A consists of my two locations, Dallas and Houston. So the idea is one report I can create multiple variations of simply by changing a cell reference inside the report. And then when we're ready to rerun the report, I don't have to build it again. I simply drag and drop it in, and I'm able to change from one period to the next, and it'll update the data for us. And of course, we can create the balance sheets as well as cash flow statements using our product. So let's spend a little bit of time going in and creating a simple income statement. Now, this is the example we used earlier, where I copied from one period to 6 periods, and this is describing the building blocks for our product. You know, what company I'm pulling from, that's going to tell us which database we're pulling from, what year, what period, and of course what main account makes up the computer's row in my report. Now, this can be a single account. It could be a wildcard where I want to pull every account that starts with a 4. It can be a list of accounts, or even a range of accounts, or a combination of a range plus an account, etc. We can do whatever we need to get the accounts that you need to return. They're going to represent the correct value. So to build a report, this is when we're going to go back into the first tab, our Functions tab, and it's going to allow us to go in and choose the type of data we'd like to pull back, whether we want to see month-to-date, year-to-date data, or budget data. And I can go in and say, yeah, that's great, month-to-date, I want to bring back a net, so I'm just going to drag and drop month-to-date net over. And that's going to allow me to create that real-time connection to the database. I don't have to understand how to create ODC connections or understand SQL schemas or how to write SQL. I simply know that I need to pull an MTD net, which is the formula function name, and then I'm going to use the F of X button, which is your Excel function editor, to add those parameters. So with that, you can see that we have the parameters listed to the left there inside of our arguments menu. They're not cryptic. They're pretty simple. Like what company we want to return. I want to return CPU, what fiscal year, and what fiscal period. Now keep in mind, I'm adding some Excel anchoring so that we put the dollar signs before and after the letter of our column, so that if I copy the formula down through the rest of the sheet, the cell reference always goes back to the same spot, so that we don't have to rebuild the formula but once. I'm going to add in our main account, which in this example is segment 3 in this database. And so once I put in our revenue, that's our account. It's going to return in a negative 802,000 for that main account 4,000. Because it's an Excel function, you can see at the top left, as soon as I click in it, you see where we're referencing. But I can also add a simple calculation to create a reversing. And so that reverses the sign. Copy the formula down, and it's completing the report for me. And I'll just continue down the remaining portion of the report for cost of goods. Once we're out of revenue, I'm going to take that reversing entry back out. Continue on. In just minutes, I'm able to build a complete income statement. To handle the role to a list of accounts, instead of focusing on just one account, 6160, I'm going to go back into the formula editor and highlight all the accounts, 3 or more, and that'll roll up all 3 accounts together in this case. To create a range, it's the same process, except a range in our products always represented by highlighting 2 items. And I can actually drag the parameter box off to the left if I want and highlight both items to pull in that range. And that completes our income statement. And most of what we did was we drag and drop the cell, and we'd use cell references in Excel to point to the parameters we want to return. The rest of it's just adding our calculations. We're going to take our revenue less our cost of goods to get our gross profit. Add some sums using our Excel all sum, and then compute our net income by going up to our gross minus our expenses. And so in just minutes, we're able to create a very simple income statement. It's live, so if I change from one period to the next, let's look at period 4, we can pull in additional data, right? So we'll put period 4, and maybe I want to see the last part of the year, 6, and we'll drag it from left to right. So that's the remaining 6 periods for that particular year. And so all of those are live. We can drill down to all of those, of course, as well. We have the ability to pull in your budget versus your actuals if you're storing budget data inside of Sage 100 as well. Of course, the last item I want to touch on is the analysis sets. And these are going to be the pre-built reports or the ad hoc reports we can use to do simple analysis on our data. And one of the things you guys, I'm sure, if you're doing any report building, working with the accounting data, is the trial balance. Sometimes I just want to see simple information. I want to see a trial balance for a period of time. We can drag and drop that report directly in, or I can bring it in as a pivot table. I'm going to choose an analysis set, and I'm going to choose to pull in data, and we'll go in and return that as a pivot. So I'm going to bring in my journal table, and we'll drag and drop that in. And it's going to request the parameters we need to be able to return that data. And again, we're going to use a company identifier because that's going to help tell us which database we're pulling data from. And then we'll put the parameters in we'd like to see. So there's my account structure. There's the debits and the credits. That's my trial balance. If I want to see that trial balance broken down by journal entries, I can do that as well. So there's all the journal entries that affect our cash. And if I want to see those broken down by our segment 2, which was my locations, I can bring that in as well. And so there are cash accounts broken down by my locations and the journal entries associated for each one of those. So that's a quick and dirty way to jump in and be able to pull data back immediately without having to create a report. It's already delivered with the product, and it allows you guys to do some ad hoc analysis very easily. Well, great. So the one thing we want people to remember when they look at the Biz Insight solution for Sage 100 is that when you compare us against other tools, the one thing we need everybody to understand is we're 100% Excel-based, which means, so the first question I had is, does BizNet run off live mass data or is it cached? We pull real-time against the data, and then we actually are putting in an in-memory cache or a local RAM cache, much like you do when you go to a website. When you first load it up, it caches the data, and then you're able to slice and dice or move through the website much quicker. We do the same thing, but we do it with Excel data. We push that data each time we run the report into a live cache. At any point in time, we can always refresh that cache, and it'll return it immediately as of that moment. And of course, every time we open up the report, it's pulling that data back into our cache. That cache, we have an expiration on that cache. Typically, we set it about 4 hours. Initially, we actually talked about and showed it with real-time connections, but what we found is that having a report where the data actually changed every time someone was posting made the accountants kind of nervous seeing your report change in front of you when you're working on it. But we do pull directly against the database. It's not a data warehouse or a queue that you have to wait for overnight to update. That's typically when I want to emphasize when we talk about that. But we do use an in-memory cache. The other thing that we want folks to remember is because we're 100% Excel, is that any of those reports you're using today, and every organization has Excel reports floating around that we're using for something that we're not able to get out of Sage 100 and or FRX directly, and we're having to create. So those Excel reports exist because the tool lives inside of Excel. We're 100% Excel based. We're able to leverage those existing reports, which means you don't have to rebuild them. And everything we demonstrated is out of the box. So we pre-built everything so it delivers very quickly. And then that in-memory or the in-memory data cache gives us the superior performance that allows us to literally refresh, thousands of cells of data per second when we're looking at reports. So you get the performance you would like as well. So the more frequently asked questions, and again, I think that we've addressed several of these as we move through the presentation. First of which is, how long does it take to implement? The solution is, you can implement the solution in less than a day. Typically, it's less than half a day. 4 hours is typical installation. And of course, yourselves, if you'd like to install it, there's a user guide, and of course, the partners do installs as well. Training is minimal because you're in Excel, and this is the important part, is people with basic Excel skills with our BizInsight solution for Sage 100 are able to create reports in just minutes. It doesn't require days and days of training to get up to speed. You're just using Excel like you do every day, typically. Because of that in-memory data cache, it allows us to get the performance you need without having to support additional cubes or data warehouses that in lots of instances require additional hardware. And that's important. It keeps the cost of the tool down. It also keeps the implementation time down as well. And then, of course, the last question that in most of our one-on-one demos, when we talk with folks, this is the question that more commonly comes back is, can we connect to other data? And we absolutely can. We have other content packs available for the Sage 100 audience. But we can also connect to any business data that you have inside your organization. If it lives in a database, BizNet can connect to that data. It just so happens we've pre-built the product specifically for Sage 100 users for financial reporting as well as AR and AP.